The comfort zone, if you look at it, on a warm winter's night, cuddling on the couch, watching a movie, that's beautiful. Comfort zone in the mind, body, and consciousness is, to me, the death of the soul. It is not why we are here. Ready?
What's up, Warriors? I wanted to let you know that empowerment is not about hype. It's about who you become when the doubt, conditioning, and old patterns try to pull you back. Today's guest on the show is an international best-selling author. She built her life around one principle, and that's suspending doubt to reclaim personal power. Laura, welcome to the Battle Harder podcast.
Oh, thank you, Coach Rob. I'm excited. We had a really wonderful conversation when we first met, and it's an honor to be here with you and the listeners. So I will follow your flow, and let's inspire and ignite some empowerment.
That's awesome. And to get right into it, take me back to where that journey actually started for you.
I love this question. It doesn't get presented often enough. It was when I was quite young. I remember being in fourth grade.
Oh, wow.
I was witnessing what we now know as bullying, but you don't know when you're a kid. We're young, under 10 years old. And I stood in and up for this person and realized that after everything had transpired and talking with the teachers and the principal and all of that, it really was my first introduction into what empowerment could mean, not only for myself, but how to almost gift that opportunity outward. And it was something that I was aware of in the moment, but then I lost sight of it because I just didn't have the development to retain it all. But it's something that followed me all the way through. And even when I moved into fifth grade, I had a teacher that wasn't quite nice. And I remember having to stand up for myself, and I did.
Do you happen to remember that teacher's name by chance?
Yes.
Really? I find it interesting as we try to think back about like those core memories, or, maybe we're sitting there watching TV or talking to a significant other and that thing just pops in your head. Like, oh my God, I remember this from, when I was 4 or 8. Do you remember, when you first felt that empowerment, you were quite young, you said, but do you remember what it felt like to actually like stand up for that person in that moment in time?
Yeah, I do, because it was a little bit scary, and it still is to this day, right? When we stand up for anything, whether it's something that really matters to us personally, or we try to be a positive influence collectively, you get scared, you get nervous. I remember the feeling. I didn't feel like I was quite going to pass out or throw up, but I do remember it felt strange. It didn't feel very natural because I was never really put into that position where I felt like I had to almost get in front of something moving. Now I'm thinking of it as an adult looking back, but I can still remember it because, again, it followed the next year with my teacher, Mrs. Girl. She's no longer with us. She just wasn't nice. And I remember thinking, I don't have anyone to stand up for me at the moment. So I have to do it for myself. I was also very fortunate that I could go home and probably speak to my parents about this, and I wouldn't have gotten punished for standing up for myself when I really thought someone wasn't being nice to me, even though she was a well-known teacher and, of course, she's the authority. But something in me kind of clicked that just because you are an adult doesn't mean you have the right, and then fill in that blank. So it was a physical feeling as well as this connection that it's important to stand up for ourselves and others when they can't.
I think that's important to go into, actually being in touch with our emotions and really being in tune with how things make us feel, whether it's happiness, sadness, depression, etc. And correct me if I'm wrong. To my understanding, you grew up in an environment that was shaped primarily by alcohol, right? That influenced a lot of negative behaviors and positive coping skills. How did that early environment shape the way you learned to survive, adapt, and how you would eventually seek something in a healthier arena?
Yeah, again, very powerful and empowering question. Alcohol was all around me. I think it has been for a lot of us. I've
Hmm.
pretty much never have met a human that was not touched by it on some level.
Right.
But it was around. And again, there's something in me, innate in me, that I was able to transform negative feelings or emotions or environment into something that felt more powerful. I don't know why. It's just something even my brother and I talk about to this day. Part of it is we really thought we were superheroes. Literally, we grew up in that era, and we really did. We thought we possessed something that could help us handle challenges differently. And I think when that came in, the alcoholism and the awareness to the destructiveness of it, the abandonment issues around it, the neglect of watching, someone, the observance of watching someone neglect themselves, therefore neglect those around them. I didn't like it. And I learned, as you said, coping skills and mechanisms, but I went even further into it. That's what started me on this path of how can I think differently about a situation so that I can, and I didn't know I was doing it at the time, recalibrate the stresses of a challenge into a learning experience for myself. I was aware of things that I was unaware of, if that makes any sense. There was just some part of my nature that didn't want to succumb to the patterns of what I was experiencing. I wanted to do differently and be better than that. And that is not to say everything was terrible. It was just, that's a hard energy for a kid to take on, alcoholism. And even if you have the counter to it, it really does have, effect on you. So there was just something in me that understood I can be stronger than this.
And I really like that. And I don't think I've thought about this before on some of my episodes with some of my guests. In your experience and what you experienced with this, do you think that some people almost build this resiliency and this like superhero like power to handle things when life is really crappy and things around them are really bad, as opposed to how most of us handle things by just crumbling and getting depressed and falling into that generational trap?
Yeah, I mean, both are true. We witness it every day of our life, whether it's, being manifested out in reality or just in the quiet spaces of our own, existence. I'm not quite sure how science would define that. What makes one person rise above and the other person, as you said, kind of crumble underneath? I'm not sure. I don't want to get into too philosophical or spiritual, maybe, thought processes around it, but maybe there's just something we are equipped with that either gets triggered on or stays off, a switch that remains inactive, opposed to an experience, a teacher, a podcast, a book, when we're young, a sports event, something that triggers an awareness to aha. And so I think for each person it's very different, but I do think that it's a choice at some point to become resilient and confident and move forward with courage rather than choose to be the victim. And
Definitely. And I love that because that kind of segues into a little bit of my story, because for me, as a veteran, as a cop, as someone who's stacked trauma on trauma on trauma, I had to learn to become resilient. I wasn't born with resilience at first. And I love, how you talk about that. And I think sometimes maybe it is a higher power or a spiritual calling or just something deep within that kind of unlocks or may was dormant and comes to fruition. Because like for me, even with talking to you, doing this, everything I do, I've always had this, like, I can't explain it, this thing inside that tells me that this I've always been meant for like great things and doing very beautiful things and helping a lot of people and speaking. And that kind of really showed itself for me um in the Navy, because the first year, like, I was physically abused, I was freaking threatened. Like, my time in the Navy for the first couple of years, it was essentially hell for me. But then when I hunkered down to decide that this is kind of what I want to do as a career, and I became a police officer in the military, I did that because the experiences that I went through, and I wanted to protect the people that couldn't protect themselves, which led to being a cop for longer and doing everything I do now. So I really do believe that just for some people, when that flight or flight kicks, for some people it's just fight, and that may be fight as far as being resilient or fighting against that evil, so to speak. And I think that also goes, a little bit into however we form our core values.
Mm,
And I've always, once I joined the Navy in 97, honor, courage, and commitment has always been my core values, because it makes sense in my life to have the honor and courage to stand up for what's right and what I believe in and what I think will make, will be a better place, and the commitment to be able to have the discipline and wherewithal, so to speak, to carry that through. We know that, many people grow up functional on the outside while carrying, like me, depression, confusion, anger, contradiction internally. What did you do to navigate that tension from who you were becoming and the environment that was shaping you into who you are now?
mm, mm. What a beautifully stated question, because we all understand this. We all wear those masks, right? We
Right.
become very egoic in our behaviors and our coping mechanisms and just the way we present ourselves on the outside. I've gotten this a lot in my life. Oh, you look, talk, dress, walk a certain way, therefore everything must be perfect. You're always positive and happy, and oh, you're smart over here, and you did this and that. What's really going on underneath? But I've always been very transparent. Again, we're going back to, there's something in us, whether it's a connection to religion, a connection to faith, a connection to spiritualism, a connection to consciousness, of the very essence of personal evolution. We all have a very unique vernacular and way of looking and moving through the language of it. For me, I think the contradiction was the gateway or the doorway or the invitation to an empowered life. Something about it. I feel sad or I feel hurt. I didn't really struggle with depression. I always took on more sadness, the heaviness of what I call sadness. It could be maybe a form of depression, but I was never felt depressed. I always ate well. I exercised. I was happy. I functioned above and beyond the normal, even if I was feeling a sadness, a weight. But something in that contradiction, the ego really being kind of puffed up, right? Captain of the cheerleading team, most popular, all that stuff. Underneath, I was well aware that there were struggles, difficulties, and challenges that the average person or friend or teacher or coach wasn't aware of, because you just didn't talk about those things way back in the day. So I think for people listening, if you're battling between those two worlds, choose the side that will empower you, that will build the
Mm.
resilience, that will gain the confidence that you've got this. And this is pretty cool that we're talking about this. I was just talking to my daughter. She was rear-ended at Christmas Eve.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, she's okay, but she was like, why? I did everything correctly. I stopped, I yield, all of what we were talking about. And I simply said to her, maybe the experience is the lesser version of what could have happened to teach you something. And I want you to think about that. What could you learn? What could you gain from all of it, the before, the during, and now the after, so that you are empowered to be a more aware driver, or, whatever it may have been. She wasn't at fault, but still, just to solidify that. So I hope that answers a little bit of that question. And if I may, thank you for your service.
Oh, no worries. I would do it. I ask everybody, when people ask me, the life that I've lived obviously has not been easy from childhood up until now, and I wouldn't change it for a world, because for whatever reason, God, the universe, whatever being is out there, decided that this is what I needed to be able to, like you said, be empowered. And I wouldn't be, if I had a normal life, I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't be, doing these things and going through these things. And I like what you said about, even though it wasn't your daughter's fault and you're like this bad thing happened, like what's the lesson there? And I think a lot of times we get so lost and mucked up in the, oh, I can't believe this happened to me, or it's a bad day, or, I can't believe this person spilled coffee on me, or this person cut me off. But if we can take that kind of stuff, bad things, even failures, losing a business, going through a divorce, and really, once the smoke clears and sit down and say, well, what was I supposed to mean by this? I think it can only already, give us some sort of brevity and some sort of almost calm that, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and we're okay and we're still alive. Do you agree with that? And go ahead and expand on that if you'd like.
Yes, I do. And again, this is how we recalibrate patterns. We look at something that happened, see the difficulty, the challenge, the hardship, find our way through it, and then take a moment and look back at it and let it have meaning and purpose. This is really how we create an empowered life. We don't just let things happen to us. We observe, and then we have meaning for maybe the why. It allows us to go a little bit deeper and not just live at the surface level. When we live at surface, we just are reactionary,
Yeah.
emotional bound people. We're tightly wound into the emotionality of our existence. When we take a step back and learn from something, again, perfect example, it wasn't her fault, but there's a lesson in there. And we've talked about it. We talked about it again today. Little bit of this hurried energy that she always has. Mom, I've always got to get somewhere fast. And the ironic part is I was doing a podcast yesterday, and the gentleman that I was talking to, he has the same thing, and he's decades older than her. He's like, I was going to the mall and I was rushing. Why am I rushing? I'm retired. I'm happy. Things are good. There's something in us. We're always trying to move from the present moment. Why? The present moment, and this isn't just a platitude. It holds so much wisdom and so much ignition for our future self, that if we take a moment and relax and observe, not judge, there's a difference, we really can grow and evolve and elevate any present condition. And this is what I was teaching her. So I hope that answers your question.
And I think it comes with planning and using tools and things that work. I mean, I would say that someone that if they were in a rush all the time, schedule your day out and pre-plan. Like I know for me, I think for a lot of people, you get cut off, or the person sitting at the light and they're not moving, and like that frustration of people not paying attention. And then a lot of times before I react, I have to pause and I have to say, okay, like, I don't know what this person's going through. It's not interrupting my day. It's not ruining anything I have going on. So why am I going to get upset and potentially put myself in a worse situation? And, that just comes to, for me, and, luckily the military gave me this, I have to be structured in all I do. If I know that I'm going on vacation, I'm going to plan enough time to get to where I'm going, because I'd rather be early than be on time or be late. And that allows things, if incidents should happen, you're not going to ruin your day, your vacation, making that flight because you were in a rush. And I think a lot of times, like you said, I think most of us with anything, whether it's wanting to get a raise, make more money, meet that person, we're always in a rush, always in a rush. And unfortunately, with social media and shopping and everything's so instant that we just completely forget to just, stop and smell the roses, so to speak, take that deep breath and realize that life's much bigger than this rat race of rushing, rushing, rushing. But with that being said, I call it limiting beliefs. You talk a lot about, suspending the doubt. I like that. Suspending the doubt rather than forcing confidence. What does that actually look like in real life when someone is afraid to change, but they know that if they stay the same, it's not going to work?
Yeah, this is what I love about suspending the doubt. This is a big part of my coaching and speaking. I truly believe in it, and I live this. I don't talk and write. I live everything I speak and write about. Suspending the doubt allows us this kind of experience of neutrality. I'm not pushing myself to go out of my comfort zone in the moment. I'm not forcing myself to pretend, fake it till I make it. I'm just suspending all the doubt around it. Because as we know, when we're up against a change, a shift, trying to really grow past something, every voice just comes pouring in, let alone the thousand that we already have in there of our own doubt and lack of confidence and all this. When we say, I'm going to suspend the doubt just for this moment, and now let's discuss, and then we fill in that discussion, it really does breathe room into what can be possible. It shifts the feeling, the emotionality, it shifts the energy that was bound up in all the limited thinking of what would happen if. Now it's not an if or an and or a when, it's just a moment. We just suspend the doubt and we play. We get more playful about what it could look like. What would it feel like? And in that moment, I think about hiking. I love hiking. I used to hike all the time in an area where I grew up. And the hike was this arduous journey all the way up to the top. But man, when you got to that ridge and you just, everything calmed for a minute and the view was spectacular. That's what suspend the doubt is. Finding a resting ridge, a moment where there is no self judgment. It is neutral at its best so that we can begin to welcome in shifts and changes to help us advance into a new way of thinking and being.
And I would think that this is something that people definitely like. It's not just going to happen. It's tools, techniques, things that they have to practice, right? Whether it's like just pausing for a second, maybe taking some deep breaths before going back into that thing. Is there some tips or tricks or things that you find that helps people suspend the doubt?
Yeah, this is the power of the J3 equals E formula. This is at the foundation that really was the impetus of me writing The Science of Empowerment. Quick notation, my brother Christopher, a former USA Olympic gymnastics coach, wrote this formula. And so I always heard about it and I would observe it at our neuromuscular training facility. And I started to kind of look and be like, what would happen if I began to practice this? If I began to coach it to my physical coaching clients, which led to all of what has followed, I wanted to know, how could you suspend the doubt? What are the tools and the techniques to help you? This formula fit in beautifully. This was really, kismet happening, magic, alchemy of the universe. And so all the listeners, think of a challenge. And when you're confronted with it again, I want you to do the following. Bring an awareness to that challenge. Again, no judgment, just bring an awareness to the challenge. Then ask yourself, what am I willing to do about that awareness to the challenge? I want you to take on accountability. So you cannot blame, you cannot shame, you cannot guilt anywhere in this moment. I am accountable to what I'm willing to do about my awareness to that challenge. Now we go into critical thinking. This is the fourth principle of the J3 equals E formula. This is where we suspend the doubt. We put the emotionality, i.e. patterns, behaviors, habits, stories. We just put them off to the side for a moment and we think as a clear, rational, intellectual human. So even if you think I don't have the confidence, I don't know how to think intellectually, I'm an okay, let's just play. You are now, I grant you, you are a brilliant, genius, powerful being. How would you now handle this situation? The minute you say that, you can see, well, I would. Boom. Now energy. We've neutralized that pattern by awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking. And now we're starting to create a more positive energy around that challenge. That suspension of doubt within less than a minute just allowed someone to experience what it is to create an empowered shift so they can begin to empower future challenges.
And it's funny because I don't know why I was thinking of this today when I was in the gym with my buddy. I was thinking of like Spock from Star Trek, right? He
Mhm.
always he always errs on the side of what's logical, not on emotion. Why do you think that when we're dealing with very hard things, losing a job or things that, would require us or should require us to put in this formula first, why do you think we always act on emotion first?
We're bred that way. We're bred on emotionality from the very beginning. Our nature needs to be protected. As soon as we enter into the world, we need to be fed and our diapers changed, and we need time to adjust. The psyche doesn't forget that. The
Mm.
nature of us, we just don't forget that. And it is so much easier to go into the pattern because the pattern is safe, where we've convinced ourselves that the reason that the story exists is because of the emotion attached to that memory. So the habit that we formed from the story that we told ourselves allows the patterns to persist, which justifies the behaviors. And there we have our reasoning for staying stuck.
And that's why, like, for especially for men, but for anybody, that's why I like stoicism, because stoicism typically takes emotion out of the equation and looks more at the logics of what's happening right now, what can I control now versus what can I control, instead of getting upset and screaming and losing my temper over something. And something that I want to dive into, I like this part right here. You say that being in the comfort zone is a delusion. Why do you think so many people mistake their familiarity for safety? And what was it in your life that finally helped you step away from those patterns that felt known but unhealthy? Because I know for me, or when I talk to everybody, I have a lot of always saying you have to be comfortable and being uncomfortable,
Mhm.
because I know that every step of my life where I was uncomfortable, that's where the growth happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the comfort zone, if you look at it, on a warm winter's night, cuddling on the couch, watching a movie, that's beautiful. Comfort zone in the mind, body, and consciousness is, to me, the death of the soul. It is not why we are here. Um, but as you said, it's familiar. It's just how we're raised. It- it's a challenge to think that we could be more than we have settled for. It just is. We just think, well, this is it, and this has to be good enough. Or who am I to think I can be someone of great value or purpose? And so for me, the patterns were breaking early on. It's just I wasn't quite aware of that's what was happening. I was always resisting the sameness. I was someone that really thrived on, new scenes, new metaphors, new ways of looking at life. So I think we stay tethered to what feels safe because we weren't taught to venture into the unknown with the same energy of staying attached to the known. It's just the flip side. So if you're afraid to move out of your comfort zone, I'm just going to say suspend the doubt and move anyways. You will find, yes, it may be a bit uncomfortable. You may have a little twinge. The butterflies kind of start flapping away, but stay with it. Keep progressing. The patterns, once they are broken, there is such a freedom in
Mm.
that. There just is. And again, tools and skill sets and knowledge and information and books and podcasts and coaching and all of what the world has to offer. There's no reason to, as I say, keep re-signing the contract to the way it's always been. Not only can it be a very boring life, and I mean that in a kind way, but it's an unlived life.
Mm.
It really is. And so for me, I've had patterns breaking all along. It could be, after a 10-year relationship with someone I thought I was going to marry and leaving the comfort of just love and safety and a home that we built and all of that. A pattern, for me is when I met my now husband, my two stepdaughters, though they are my children in every sense of the word. I gave up having a baby because my little one was burned pretty badly, and needed my full attention
Oh,
right
wow.
around when we all first became a family. And I couldn't take on, you know, getting pregnant, being pregnant, and taking care of a little one. She was still very little. She was 7 years old. She's fine. now, of course, but she was burned quite badly on her leg when she was visiting her grandparents in France. And those were pivotal moments. Recently, well, as of recently, within the last decade, I was practicing a backflip over an octagon and fell on my head and was
Oof.
concussed for over a year, subluxation into the C1. And it was at the beginning of the joy of starting to write and create the science of empowerment.
Oh,
And you
wow.
want to, yeah, you want to talk about the universe testing a lifelong dream when I just set forth all the energy to create and to have this injury that, I mean, I had to get my neck cracked every day for 7 months. Otherwise I would throw up. I couldn't stand. It was horrific for me. I'm an athlete. I've skied down after I broke my leg. I mean, it takes a lot to get me down. And this just wiped me. I actually had to live the formula, live
Mm.
it in order to write a pure, honest, transparent book. I had to exercise it every day. And I had to ask myself every day, it became a mantra. What am I aware of? There were times I couldn't even get out of bed. Everyone would attest I had to crawl into the bathroom. What am I willing to do? Crawl. Who's accountable? Me. How many times can someone pick me up and bring me in there before there's that day it's going to come, right? Critical thinking. If I let that emotionality get to me, I would never have moved, never have moved. And energy, I decided to neutralize it. Neutrality became a superpower for me. I didn't hold myself, anchor myself into the incident. I just, every day I kept eating better, moving my mind, moving my body, had to get glasses so I could type. I just kept moving forward. And yes, there are some people that would say, that's impossible. I can't. Well, if you invite I can't in, then you won't.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot about the limiting beliefs and reframing and saying things like I get to go to the gym versus I have to go to the gym, or I can't learn to do this versus that I can learn to do this. And I don't think people realize how powerful words actually mean when it comes to our psyche and talking to ourselves and how we view ourselves. And, speaking to neuroscientists and stuff, it's pretty crazy. That's pretty simple that if you say, I'm going to have a good day, you're probably going to have a good day versus if you say I'm going to have a good day, you're probably going to have a bad day. And that just, man, that's pretty amazing that that grit and stuff you had to determine to continue to take care of yourself instead of, completely relying on family. And it's funny, right? Because when you do things like this, people think you're crazy. Like, why are you trying to do this?
Yeah.
But you're trying to do it because you want to be a strong person and you want to do the right thing and you want to know that I'm going to be okay and I can continue to do this. And I still haven't figured out the science or understand why some people just err on the side of losing life, like not trying to find that job or that person they want to be with, not trying to have those things that they want to have. And like you said, that so far staying in that comfort zone, even if it's bad for them to the
Mhm.
point where they get to this point, they think I'm stuck and I can't get out of this and I can't do anything about it. And, to my understanding, before this accident, you waited decades to write your book, The Science of Empowerment, even though, as we just spoke, you've had kind of this feeling for a very long time, even when you were younger. What was those internal barriers? So for someone that, maybe they want to write a book, and I've ran into a lot of people here lately that, especially with, Amazon and the way we can publish things, we have ability to reach as a lot of people with very little, hiring agents and publishers and things. What was it that shifted when you finally said, I can do this and I'm going to do this? Because you did say, like, this formula, you had to live it and you had to kind of test that theory. And at the end of the day, I'm assuming you're like, man, this theory works. And now I got to put this out to everybody else.
Yeah, and I also think I've got so many thoughts racing because I was in a comfort zone.
Mm,
I just had a nice life. I wasn't flying around on jets and dripped in diamonds, right? Like how some people listen and think, oh, that's a nice life. But I had a nice life. I had the ability to recalibrate challenges fairly easy. So it wasn't like I always felt burdened, but I still was in my comfort zone. And my brother would always remind me of it, right? He would always say, we don't call each other Laura and Christopher. It's always brother, sister. We've just been like this
mm,
forever. And he would say, sister, what are you doing? There's a genius in you. There's a brilliance about the way you speak that everyday people become inspired, where he is a coach for champions, whole different mindset, whole different discipline, whole different structure. But again, when I saw that, I was like, we're all trying to be champions in our own way. Better mothers or fathers or uncles or friends or mentors or podcasters or writers, whatever, gardeners, janitors, police officers, we're all trying. It may not, be everybody's cup of tea the way we try and where we go, but we're trying. And so for me, I really feel that the blocks are in place to ignite the change. And for those of us who refuse to acknowledge the change needs to be experienced, that is in and of itself the block. So I think if you can look at, for someone like me, I kind of was just always moving and always had, again, just this really kind of unique and fun and cool life. But why did it take me decades to do something that I knew at 14 I wanted to do? I was 14 years old. I was in freshman year in high school. My mom and I had this conversation about writing this book to empower whoever, the world, you say when you're a kid, but, and she was like, write it, go for it. I'm looking back, and in full honesty, I think, as you were saying, we all find comfort in what feels good in the moment.
Yeah.
And moving out and writing something for me. So I chose not to go to university. I chose to self-educate. And this was my big block. I didn't have the designation and the accreditation after my name. It wasn't Laura Brennan Ballet, PhD. So who am I to write a book on how to create an empowered life? And we can have a discussion on, well, of course, why not you? We all know how that conversation would go. But I really questioned, who am I to write a book like this? Now, my brother, we could say, well, you worked with champions. Okay, that is his accreditation. He is a certified USA Olympic gymnastics coach. But then he would look at me and say, the way you converse out in the world is no different than the way I do. And you don't know the things I know. What is that? What is that in you that allows you to do that? And it was the belief in human potential that I was aligned with very early. It was that belief that we are all equipped with something unique and purposeful to add into the human collective. I really do believe in that. I write about this in The Science of Empowerment, that coded in the DNA, there is no junk. Science now knows this, and science is just moving at warp speed, but everything that a human needs to move through a challenge, to blow through an obstacle, you have it in you. And the block or the hesitation is the trigger. Move again, suspend the doubt and go for it anyways. That moment that I decided to start to write the book, everything shifted for me. Just the moment of thinking. So again, I suspended the doubt. I didn't know that's what I was doing in the moment. I'm not smart enough. I didn't graduate from Harvard. I don't have a doctorate. Everything is self-taught, self-learned. It's all from personal research and data. And the beauty and the power that now I can speak on is I didn't read someone else's material and then write a book on it. This is all self-created. This language, this vernacular, every sentence, every word, every verse, I thought so clearly for someone reading it, how will this help them and support them? And when anyone reads the book, they know there's nothing about me in the book. Maybe at the end about the author I had to put in. But the book, there's nothing of me in the book. It was so when you read it, you're like, oh, I can see myself there. I know what that feels like to judge or think or feel in that way. But look what she just said. I can do this, even though I think I don't have what it takes to do it. I can suspend the doubt. I lack confidence. Suspend it. Act as if you have it. Now you've gained confidence. Suspend the doubt. I'm unsure about how to ask that person out. Ask them out. They say no. That's okay. Now I know how to ask someone else out. The only blocks that we place in front of us are the ones that we need to actually go through. Those are the keys. Those are what crack the codes. They really do.
And I love that. And guys, like, I hope you're really picking up on the things that Laura's saying, because these are some like really amazing things. And I urge you that at any point, if you hear something that like it just kind of grabs your attention or it pulls on your heartstrings, rewind it, listen to it again, because the key point she said, in that little bit, we all have the ability to be amazing people. We all have the ability to be great. And just because you grew up a certain way or you had a certain kind of finances, or the barriers don't matter. If you believe within your heart and soul that you can do something. And I like what you said about, writing the book, why me? I don't have this, I don't have that. And that first happened to me when I said I was going to be a coach, and people would be like, well, you're not a psychologist. I'm like, no, but I'm a veteran who has trauma. I'm a cop who has trauma. I'm a divorced dad who has trauma. I lost a business and I had trauma, and I had to figure out either A, was I going to let the trauma defeat me, or was I going to get out of it? And when I found those tips, tools, and tricks and the things that work for me, I'm like, why would I not give this to somebody else? It's almost like a moral obligation
Yes.
for me to share that with somebody. And as long as I tell you up front, hey, just so you know, I'm not a psychologist, but this is what I can give you. If you choose to work with me, you're going to have those answers based on my experience and perception, not based on medicine or journals or studies. And look, I see a therapist, I take meds for mental health. I believe in all that stuff. I think it's good, but
Mhm.
that's not the end all be all. When I talk to a psychiatrist, if they're not a veteran or if they weren't a cop, they might not understand me just going based off textbook knowledge or their studies. So, you know, to have someone that has lived in experience, that can make a world of difference. And I love this term, thought energy,
Oh, yeah.
using that as a awareness tool and becoming conscious of your energy. And I talk a lot about, most of us that are kind of in this arena, we know that everything, like literally everything has energy, us talking, the computer, like everything. And we're only, we only have so much to give out and so much to use throughout the day. Being conscious of your internal energy, how does that change the patterns of the way people respond to their pressure, their relationships, and their self-doubt?
I love this. So I specialize in thought energy. It's something that I've connected to this from early on. The way we think has directive over what we experience, and it really does. So when we apply thought energy, and this is really just around the idea of, and everyone again has a different way they can look at it. You can be an engineer, an architect, a designer, a gardener, just however you want to design your thought process. What style of energy would you place into the design? You wouldn't place negative thought energy into your system. Maybe you would do neutral, so you have the ability, right, to just kind of have a set point that's rational. But most of us, if we had the ability to design a system, a process, a way of thinking, a way of being, we'd want it to be pretty darn positive as often as possible. So, energy is in everything, whether it's condensed or it's free flowing. We have ions and atoms. We have sparks of the universe that actually make up the galaxies in our body right now.
Right.
We are powerful, amazing, electric human beings. And so please don't cut yourself off from this. It doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to change the world. It means that you are going to start to tune in to what kind of energy am I aligning myself with today? So when you wake up, ask yourself, which energy do I choose? Negative, positive, or neutral? Maybe you went to bed and you were a little pissed off about something, and you wake up and you're still a bit pissed off. So you're at a negative. So now ask yourself, what am I aware of? I'm negative. What am I willing to do? Suspend the negativity,
Mm.
neutralize, take a walk, have a cup of tea, call a friend, open up a book, listen to 5 minutes of my podcast, go for a walk. Right there, that is an empowered human being who's accountable to the choice I am. Critical thinking, here I go. I am not being driven around in the vehicle of emotionality. This doesn't mean we aren't emotional. We're beautiful emotional creatures. It means I'm not going to be at the directive or at the command or the authority of a negative thought process. I am going to think clear and rationally, if only for a moment, put my sneakers on, go for a walk, come back. Maybe I'm mad when I'm walking, but I'm also doing something good to counter, right? The anger. Now I've neutralized my energy. I'm in a better position to have a more positive day. And this is how, again, I keep reiterating this, but this is how we empower with the IN, right? Through knowledge. And we empower the way we go about our day. So suspend the doubt, neutralize emotionality, and move towards something positive even for one moment every day. It will build upon itself, and you will be able to start to shift the way you look at the world and the way you show up in the world.
And can you just, because you just gave the like three keys right there, can you repeat those three things that people can do or use that you just said that will help them to change, their thought patterns?
Yeah. So think about energy. Think about energy. What does it do for me, within me? And apply awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, and energy. And allow yourself to remind yourself you are not the story. You're not the story. You are ever changing, ever growing, ever moving. We are energy in motion. There's something in you. I mean, my goodness, we could go forever. What it takes to pump the heart alone would blow your mind. What it takes to the liver and the pancreas and the functionality, forget the brain, and just to move your feet and just to have a thought and let it come out somewhat coherent. Like, don't settle for that moment of, oh, that isn't great, or I've always been this way, I've always done things this way. So remember the formula, apply the formula, suspend the doubt, and remind yourself that you are energy in motion. And any moment that you settle for the comfort zone is inaction rather than action. So comfort is beautiful. Comfort zone is a stagnation. So I know I'm not answering all in the same because I never can, because everything is
You're good.
fresh in its mind. But there's so many skills and tools that you can take. And if nothing else, remind yourself, what am I aware of? What am I willing to do? And who's accountable for that choice? Let me suspend the doubt around, fill in that blank. Let me think clear and rational just for a moment. Energy. I've just begun to neutralize negative energy into a more positive way of thinking. And always remind yourself that thought energy is your command, your authority, no one else's. No one can tell you how to think. No one. They might be able to try to influence the way you think, but no one can truly get in your mind and be behind the way you're thinking. That's on you.
And I love that. And guys, for someone, you know, if you're new here, like I tell my story all the time and I talk about mental health and everything over and over again. And for someone that was stuck in an insanity loop of negativity for, I mean, years,
Mm.
years. And if you've been in the same position, you know that when you feel negative, you essentially just feel sick all the time, stomach aches, headaches, tightness in your body, like you can't relax, you fidget, you can't make good decisions because you're erring on emotion over logical reasoning. And once I found those tools to get me out of that negativity, the feelings of feeling positive and happy and trying to be somewhat at peace just is so much more amazing. And I can't tell you what it's done for my relationship with my wife and my kids and healing and everything. But I want you to know, like, I didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm happy now. I literally had to to get up and, in my own way, my energy shift was as soon as I woke up, I would say, I'm going to have a good day.
Mm.
And I would say that over and over again. And, at first going through this, I'd have to probably say every 2 to 5 minutes, I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to have a good day. That person would cut me off. I'm going to have a good day. But now to the point that I don't have to say that because I have more good days than bad. And I'm going to tell you, as someone with mental health issues, they're not going to go away, but I can control as much as I can to put those issues behind me and not let the negativity, not let the depression, not let those things define me. And I'm finding when you can do that and you can decide what kind of energy you're going to have throughout the day, you can have more good days than bad. And that's the point. We're all going to have bad days regardless. It's just the way it is. But you can have more good days than bad. So if you're stuck, I want you to really pay attention to this conversation and absorb everything we're telling you, because this could just be another tool or key point to change your whole perspective on life and getting you shifted in the direction that you probably should have been all along. And I want you to remember, and I talk about this a lot with a lot of my guests, time is not infinite. Time is very finite. So why are you going to be stuck in this personal hell? You have permission to be happy. You have permission to make money. You have permission, whatever you need to do to be at peace and realize that your life is great. You have permission to do that. Don't wait for somebody else to give you permission. Don't wait until you feel better. The whole time we've been talking, action trumps inaction every time. And, with that, we know I talk discipline, 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 discipline. Motivation fades. You say empowerment sustains. I love that.
Yeah.
What is the difference between people who chase inspiration or actually recalibrating your behavior so you can have it at an energetic, habitual level and be more constant or neutral, as you said, than either up and down all the time?
Yeah, because as you said, if we're chasing anything, you have to have a resting period. No, nothing on earth can chase 24/7
Right.
eventually. And that's why. So think about the energy of the word chasing. We're just using that as an example for a conversation. You'll get exhausted. However, if you think about, let's say, again, here's thought energy, neutrality, it's calming, it's peaceful, there's no push. So now if we create a set point to be neutral, now to move towards a more positive, sustained environment, i.e. an empowered environment, it's much easier. We're not chasing empowerment. We're learning how to be empowered. And there's a great difference there. It's just like kind of looking at the words reinvention and recalibrate. Reinvention is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's all consuming. Recalibrate? No, it's just a shift. It's a shift in how you're thinking. It's really about thought and how thought, again, I use this word, have directive over how we're feeling. And when we use thought energy to create an empowered life, we start to feel more of the abilities that are innate to us. I don't like to necessarily use the word control because a lot of people can easily be kind of knocked off of the control level quickly. Something can come in and they're out of control. They spin. So I don't tend to use the word control, though it can be an empowered word for some. I like to use, again, the word confident, because confident is a choice.
Right.
Control for me is more of a feeling. But if we know we are confident in the skill, in the tool, in the information and the knowledge that I've gathered to be less reactive and more responsive, we're now an empowered human being. And it takes a lot to shake somebody that is empowered. If we look at someone that feels in control, and we talk about this at the training facility, you can knock someone off of control pretty easily, because as a coach, whether you're coaching mentally, emotionally, or physically, you know that if someone feels in control because they've just done a skill, whether it's an iron cross or lifting a heavier weight, as a coach, you can now challenge them to do the iron cross suspend it higher or lift a higher weight, and they've lost control of that feeling immediately. But if you really invite them to have the confidence to move towards the next level of the skill, they really do begin to feel empowered. And, like even when we're training our clients, it's never, I can't, I'm trying. It's, I will get there. I am working on it. And that shift in thought energy changes everything. It's no longer feeling deflated because I can't do it. Of course you can't. It's a new skill. It's a new weight. It's a new technique. It's a new thought process, but you're on your way. And that's really, I think, quite wonderful.
And I also think people have to be realistic, so to speak, because anything I like to say, for everything that you're trying to do to be better, you have to get the reps in, right?
Yeah.
And we apply that a lot to fitness, but we know that if I want to bench 315 pounds, if I've never done it before, it's not going to happen. Can I be confident that I can do it? Yes, but without putting those reps in and starting at a baseline and working my way up, it's never going to happen. And I think when it comes to our emotions, when it comes to stopping the doubt, being empowered, you have to practice it. You have to get those reps in. It's like I just said, I can't just magically not be negative. There has to be a shift, as you said, to where you're confident that, hey, I may not be in control of the situation, but I know I can overcome that. And, you and I, we both, speak and work with people across very different stages of where they're at in their lives and personal development. For you and your clients, what are some of the patterns that you constantly see in like high achieving individuals that may still feel blocked or disconnected?
Believe it or not, they feel that they're not enough.
Mm,
Nothing is ever enough, and
mm,
nothing is ever good enough. And they also, and I find this actually even in people who aren't, say, at that level. We all feel the pressure to show up and be on, right? All the time. Look like we've just walked off the cover of a magazine, drive a certain car, travel here, whatever it may be. And when we don't show up in that particular environment, somehow we take it as a negative,
mm,
but it isn't. Not everyone has the same karma or destiny or fate, however you want to look at it. Not everyone is equipped with the same, and then we can fill in those blanks. I think what's really important is, again, I always talk about this. If you're a gardener, just enjoy being a gardener. If you're a janitor, a school teacher, a doctor, a neurologist, a police officer, a coach, whatever it is, find your passion,
mm,
connect with it. If I could do anything in the world within reason, what would I do? That gut visceral reaction is what you should probably start to maybe partake in. Let nothing, I love the Mother Teresa, let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. Everything passes except God. He alone is sufficient. Now, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Meaning, there is nothing or no one that should create such a distortion in who you are and how you show up in the world that your whole life is wrecked. It's okay that some stuff happened. You made it through. It doesn't mean you forgive. It doesn't mean you forget, even though you can do both. It means that you release. You just release so you can create room and space so you can fully engage in your personal potential. So you can have the ability to tap into something that is yet discovered in you. Don't let anyone block your beauty. Don't let anyone dim your light. And I know I went off here because it's just something that I feel is so important to say. Everyone has a spark
mm.
in them. Everyone. Take the challenges as the keys, the windows, the doorways, the gateways, however you want to look at it. That is the universe inviting you towards your greatness. And greatness means different things for different
Mhm.
people. It could be, again, being the best mom, the best coach, the best whatever. Don't settle for your present condition. Go past it, go beyond it. And I think about, if there's moms and dads listening, when you're talking to youth, I talk to youth a lot, and I raise my kids like this, to become an outlier. Always be an outlier. If you're in the middle lane and it's too congested, they know, where do you go? To the right lane, mom. What if the right lane gets congested? Well, we hop over to the left lane. What if all 3 lanes on the freeway aren't congested? Well, we find a way. We go up, we go over, we go under. Create the ability to transform every challenge into a lesson that helps you elevate and evolve, not only for yourself, but for the collective human family, because God knows we need it.
I love all that. And I just like to add, like, just because Coach Rob wants to be, the Tony Robbins of veteran keynote speaking, or, the Joe Rogan of podcasting, doesn't mean that you have to. And if you're listening to this and, you're a gardener or a mechanic or a janitor and you love what you do, do that to the best of your ability. And I love what you said about, don't let that person dim your light, because that's what you chose. If you're at peace and you're able to support and provide for your family, that's all that matters. The external stuff between everybody else doesn't matter, because you're allowed to be at peace. You're allowed to have permission to do what you love. Just because I don't want to be a mechanic doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a mechanic.
Right.
So do whatever it is that you're doing at the best of your ability, because I guarantee you, anybody, a mechanic, a janitor, depending on how hard they work, what extra they do, what kind of commitment they put into the, can open other opportunities for other things and make you head janitor or make you supply manager, where you're getting paid to, order supplies. So whatever it is you do in your day to day, do it to the best of your ability, and don't worry about what other people say or think about that. Your book, Science of Empowerment, where can people check that out at?
So they can visit the website, www.thescienceofempowerment.com. There is a copious amount of free knowledge and information. So just grab a cup of tea or coffee and peruse. There's the media page. I publish articles all the time. There's all styles of humans that go to this website. There's actually an area you can email me. So the website is just filled with complimentary knowledge to help people and support people along. The book, you can get it on Amazon. I think I shared with you, it's now a #1 international best-selling book.
That's
so
awesome.
Please read the book. This, unless you are like a Tony Robbins and Mel Brooks, et cetera, Jay Shetty, you don't write books and become, wealthy through books. As a writer, as a storyteller, as someone that experienced life, you feel this honor of imparting knowledge to help other people in their own way. So reading the book is a beginning to your experience of becoming an empowered human. And people who read the book when I first started, that's how my coaching came. They would write to me and say, can you please coach me? And I was like, well, of course, because I've lived it, so I can speak on it. And then this is where it came from. So, go to Amazon. The book, it's like $20. The reviews will blow you away. And it's an amazing book. And I've now just created a course, the Science of Empowerment in-home course. Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it's just a way someone can just kind of go at their own pace. Purchase the book, purchase the course, and your life will change. And I know that from the testimonies and the clients and the people that I've helped. So thank you for that opportunity to share. And I really hope that the listeners gained some momentum towards empowering their potential, whatever that may be. And again, let no one tell you that you are less than, ever. Stand up for yourself. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, and to partake in your greatness. And there is someone somewhere that will garner something from you when you allow that part of yourself to show up for all of us to see.
And guys, as usual, everything will be in the show notes, so you can link up with Laura if you want to contact her, if you want to check out the book. I'd recommend checking that out. And I would go even further. As always, I do put the chapters in this show, so there will be the chapter on her formula. And I'm going to do this myself when I get some time, but I would invite you to go back to that part where she talks about the formula, listen to exactly what she says, how to do it, get you a piece of paper, because, I'm always about giving you practical stuff to do, and write down like your biggest block and use that formula to try to solve it just like it was a math equation. And I bet you'll be surprised of what the answer and outcome was on that. So definitely check that out. You know what, Laura, thank you so much for being here today. It was a great conversation. I love conversation like this. I can nerd out on the brain and emotions and everything all day long. And guys, I just want to say, her work challenges the idea that empowerment comes from force of positivity, right? It comes from within. And instead, it begins with you being aware. Self-awareness is the key to a lot of things. It gives you the responsibility and courage to suspend that doubt and enough to choose something healthier. That's it for today's episode. If something in this conversation stuck with you, that's where the real change starts. Outside of this podcast, my work is centered on structured training, accountability, and helping people rebuild strength, discipline, and consistency when their life gets off track. If these conversations are useful to you, subscribing helps make sure you don't miss the ones you didn't know you needed yet. You can find more at battleharder.com or follow along on socials. Thanks for listening, and always be fit for battle.